Annual run rate of payments processed is a little more than 300 million.
Right now, if you were to compare Skydo's rates to any other provider, what's the difference like?
A business making a few $1,000s of and receiving payments for that, we are by far the cheapest in the market. There is no comparison. PayPal was the one who modernized international payment. It's time now to figure out the next solution or the next evolution. Then they are looking at you. This person I met on TopTal or Upwork, and I can see that he or she has got the right portfolio. The person is looking for website design services, right? Yeah, this designer seems great. I'd love to work with that person. But after chatting with that person, I look at these complicated India account numbers. There is another person, slightly more expensive, but from Israel, is giving you a PayPal wallet ID, which is more known to me. Then I would actually go with somebody who is like more known.
You got a scholarship to study to the US. At that time, coming back wasn't popular. What happened?
I had a girlfriend back home.
How much of that was motivation to come back?
Professional 50, personal 50.
And how did you get your first 5 customers?
Twitter.
Would you have done this without calling?
I am super excited to have you here, one of the co-founders of Skydo. And I think this is going to be super relevant for a lot of listeners and viewers because of the fact that everyone, or I think at least 70% of people listening are potential service providers who export their services abroad. So I guess to start things off, what is Skydo? What does it do?
So Skydo is an international payments platform. Think of it as an easy way to collect money from your customers wherever they are in the world. Easier than PayPal, easier than your bank wire transfer.
I've had horror stories with PayPal and others, but yeah.
Yeah. So, by the way, to give credit where it's due, I think PayPal was the one who modernized international payments.
It did.
But I think there is time. It's time now to figure out the next solution or the next evolution of that story, right? Especially for Indian businesses, there are additional complications. It's not just about receiving payments, but it's also about doing those post-payment compliances, which small businesses typically A, are not aware of, and B, find it very difficult given they don't have staff to take care of specific compliances. That it typically falls on the entrepreneur themselves. So having been an entrepreneur in the past with exports businesses, I also knew that some of these things are more complicated than they sound at first, and are real pain points or irritants where a business or a business owner is wasting their time. So we said, why not make this entire journey seamless, simple, and cost effective?
And right now, if you were to compare Skydo's sort of rates to any other provider, what's the difference like?
Yeah. So for the relevant customer segment, who is a business, making a few $1,000s of, invoice and receiving payments for that, we are by far the cheapest in the market. Like there is no comparison. But if, I change the frame and look at everybody who's receiving payments, then of course there are different segments for which other players are probably more, viable. So I think it's important to know who is your customer, and we can confidently say that for our customer, we are the cheapest.
Assuming I'm selling to the US, right? And I got a recent new client, let's say they're paying us $5,000 a month. How simple is it for them to now pay to India, pay to, one of our accounts? And what is how much do we actually end up getting out of the 5,000?
So when Skydo was not there, you would typically at $5,000 credit card is a little bit, it's too much to receive it credit card, because if you ask your customer to pay you by credit card, they're going to use a PayPal wallet and then make a payment. Firstly, you'll have to sign up with PayPal and get payments through PayPal. Secondly, they would use a credit card to pay, and most people in the US are not very comfortable loading a $5,000 payment on a credit card. They would rather do it through account transfer. I think up to $500 or maybe even $1,000, sometimes even up to $2,000, credit cards are still okay. But 5,000 is a little bit too much. Even if they want to do so, when you receive the payment, you're going to lose about 4% in processing fee and about 4% or 5% hidden in the form of the exchange rate that the card company offers you. So today USD INR is somewhere in the 85, 86 rupees per dollar range. So 5% is basically about 4 rupees, right? So yeah, you would see that your dollars have been converted into Indian rupees at 82 or something, right? So that's how you lose.
That used to pain me. I was 16 years old. I used to do some stuff on Instagram, and I wasn't even old enough to have a PayPal account. So I signed up using my mom's PAN card, And I remember how much it actually took away, and that hurt my soul.
Exactly. So at $5,000, then you're looking at basically about 8%, which is about $400. Right,
Yeah.
that's what you would lose if you instead did wire transfer. So you have a bank account here with, let's say, Union Bank of India. You give your account number and SWIFT code to your payer. The complications are in this case are slightly different. Firstly, when you give an Indian account number and a routing code or a SWIFT code to the US sender,
They start thinking like, oh my God, okay, it's an international transaction.
Yeah.
There's more to set up than an ACI.
exactly. So then they would look at it and say, this seems complicated and different than what I'm used to.
Right.
Like in India, we are used to maybe 12-digit or 14-digit account numbers. The comparison is not between paying you in India versus paying another person in India. The comparison is actually now you are part of a global talent pool selling a particular service. So then they are looking at you saying that, okay, this person I met on TopTal or Upwork, and I can see that, he or she has got the right portfolio. Let's say the person is looking for website design services, right? Yeah, this designer seems great. I can see great output. I'd love to work with that person. But after chatting with that person, I look at these complicated India account numbers and all that. Then there is another person, slightly more expensive, but from Israel, is giving you a PayPal wallet ID or something which is more known to me. Then, chances are, just to avoid additional cognitive overload, I would actually go with somebody who is like more known.
Yeah.
So I just want to emphasize that these complications are so much that they can even mean getting the business versus not getting the business, leave alone losing money. But let's say even somehow you make your customer overcome that initial hesitation. Then there are practical considerations on most small banks in the US do not offer SWIFT facility from your internet banking. So then you'll have to either go to your branch or write to your branch or call your RM, etc., and then set up this SWIFT facility. Many times, no frills account might not even have international wire facilities. So then, you might have to pay extra for it, etc., as a sender. So for the sender itself, there are so many complications. Then, if some digit gets missed out, or, let's say your bank code
Then the
actually
money
has
ends
16
up
digits.
going back, and then 30 days payment is late.
Exactly.
Things like that. I guess you also mentioned, or you think of Skydo as a cross-border operating system.
That's right.
What exactly do you mean by operating system in this case? Because
Yeah.
I'm guessing you want to cover everything in terms of cross-border payments, right? So do you guys also have plans to have wallets per se, or more like just facilitate the transactions?
That's right. So you can think of your bank as, your financial OS, right? So they're basically helping you do A to Z. You can open bank accounts, you can have debit cards, you can probably apply and get a credit card, get a loan, get a mortgage, and so on. But when it comes to international business, I think everything is very piecemeal and broken today. So somebody gives you a loan, somebody helps you do shipping, somebody helps you do, import export payments and so on. Our vision is that, can we be that single company or single interface that really helps anybody go global? So if you're a business, you need to go global. You can bank with anybody in your home country, but when you decide to go global, then Skydo is your OS. It helps you with payments. It helps you with compliances, which are very different in different countries. It helps you with international taxation, paying and collecting, and compliances, and probably in the long term, even discoverability and trade, facilitation.
That would be cool. And I guess before Skydo, right? If I wanted to open or receive payments in a local US bank account as an Indian,
Yeah.
what were my options? Were they to go and open a US non-resident LLC and then open a local bank account from there? Or were there also other methods?
Yeah, the only way in which you could get paid locally in, let's say, US or UK as an Indian company or Indian freelancer is by opening an entity abroad.
An entity that becomes a whole.
And that's a wholly, a whole new ball game,
Yeah.
different complications.
Accounting, liability, everything. You also watched your father build a company from scratch, if I'm not wrong.
That's right.
Did that motivate you to build Skydo today, just watching your family growing up in that environment? Did that give you your startup founder sort of drive?
Yeah, 100%. I think so. My father belongs to a family of people who have generally worked in private sector or government services. So nobody in our family before my dad has been an entrepreneur. In fact, my grandfather was the first generation to move out of the village and come to a town or a city, and they went and joined the government services. Then all my uncles went and joined private sector jobs. So my father was the first one to do entrepreneurship with no family background and no asset or capital to start with. So I can clearly see during the course of my childhood and my adulthood how much our financial standing
It
in
drastically
society has
changed
drastically
upwards?
improved.
Did that also help with your confidence?
Absolutely, yes. Right. So you can very clearly see what the cash flow differential is between entrepreneurship and salaried. Once your entrepreneurship venture becomes successful.
How did that feel actually, in a way, to be growing up and constantly, I'm guessing getting
Yeah.
better and better in a way, economically?
Yeah. So luckily, our value systems were very rooted in middle class systems. So it's not like we were splurging a lot or spending a lot, but I could clearly see that we were moving up in terms of able to afford better schools, able to live in better neighborhoods, take vacations more often, take vacations longer, take vacations in
Better places?
India as well as outside of India and so on, right? So I could clearly see that the quality of life, quality of experiences were all driven by this differential cash flow that entrepreneurship brings. That was, of course, the first thing that appealed to me as a child, because at that point, you're not thinking motivation and all of those things. You're just thinking,
What you get, what you
what you
experience.
get, right? What you experience. But as I grew up and as I started working, I was very clear. My father is very inspirational to me, and he's my, I would say, first hero. So I always felt like, what he has done with limited education and very, very little by means of family background is fantastic. And I should go and run his company. That was my only aim when I was studying.
Do you ever feel like did that also put a lot of pressure on you to live up to perhaps his expectations or others' expectations? Like, he did this, what are you going to do? Right? In a way.
No, not really, because honestly, I grew up in a family which is still now, even now, all my cousins and uncles and aunts and everyone are quite simple and very down to earth people. So there was no societal pressure or family pressure at all. There was only the self motivation that I had, that I should go and take over my business, my dad's business, and then push it to the next level. I think the only thing that I would feel from time to time was like a tussle between two possible paths forward. Always, like I also studied well and I went to good schools and I had good jobs and so on. So I always felt like, okay, this path is also interesting, this path is also interesting, which one should I take?
Right.
So that tussle I had within myself, but nobody external gave me any pressure.
That's awesome. How did you get that self-motivation? Because I feel like, even me growing up, I think we grew up relatively like fine, right? But then things happened in between that sort of lowered my family's like economic level. And then I had to start doing things. So when we were like, okay, everyone was doing well, it was really hard for me, at least personally, to find that self-motivation or the driving factor. And I think it's likewise for a lot of my, I would say, like friends who also grew up like fine. A lot of them just don't have that drive or that motivation to do something out of their own.
I would say mostly I'll give that credit to my mother and also the relatively humble beginnings we all came from.
Yeah.
My mother was a great student in her school days, and she also made sure that we were always at the top of class. So she would give me a lot of grief.
You were an A-star student?
Yeah, I was. So she would give me a lot of grief for not, getting full marks. For example, in math, like she wouldn't be happy with a 98. She would always say, "Where is the remaining 2 marks?" Right? So she was that kind
Every Indian mother, I swear. But yeah.
So she was like that, and that never changed till we finished school and we got into college and so on. So that drive to be in strong academic institutions was always there. I think that then helps you, because then you're always amongst people who are also like really hardworking, really motivated, and wanting to achieve great things. So then your peer group motivates you. I think that's probably, I would say, the main reason.
You got a scholarship to study to the US. So I guess you went there for do you go there for your degree or master's?
Masters.
For your master's. At that time, coming back wasn't popular, right?
Not at
In a
all.
way.
Not at all. Yeah.
What happened?
See, for me, it was like I was studying there from 2001 to 2003. It was also one of the kind of not so good times to be in the US as an Indian or as a foreigner, because jobs were very scarce. It was immediately after the 9/11 attacks, and the country was quite claustrophobic to outsiders. Visas were hard to come by, and generally it was not a great environment to be in. And also there was a recession after the 9/11. So it was also, by the way, just after the dot-com crash of 2000, right? So in general, jobs were poor and the economy was depressed. Socially also they were kind of like close-minded and so on. That's what I felt. So I had two options, right? I could find some job there and then keep sticking around and figuring out, which is what most of my friends ended up doing, or do a second master's, extend your stay, or start doing a PhD and then keep trying for jobs on the side. And if you get a job, then discontinue your PhD. But most of my friends ended up doing that. I thought about it actually, and I said, listen, let's really think about why we want to work, right? Because at that time I was like, my only aim in life was to actually join my dad's business. So I said, anyway, for me it's all about working for 2 to 3 years to get experience, and then go and join my family business. So why should I struggle and do some job which is not going to be in my line of business? So all the jobs that engineers, after 6 years of mechanical engineering education, I was getting jobs in as a data analyst or as a stuff like that, which are very, very different from what I studied, and also going to be very different from what I had to do to run my family business. So I just felt like it was not taking me towards something, but it was taking me away from it.
Yeah.
I also had a girlfriend back home, so all of this put together.
How much of that was motivation to come back?
I would say at least 50-50, right?
Yeah.
Professional 50, personal 50.
Got it.
So I said, so let me just not complicate my life right now. Let me go back to India, because that's where, my future is. So I came back, no regrets. It was an unpopular and unusual move in those times. But I felt like, if I stayed for 5 years, for example, I would get very used to the lifestyle difference between the US and India was very, very stark 25 years back. So I said I would get used to all of this and then, find it more and more difficult with each passing year to go back. So let me actually go back right now.
And you already knew that you wanted to come back and continue, or at least join the family business, right? So then why go in the first place? Was it because of sort of pressure from mom, like padna to hai, or was it a part of you also that you wanted to go and explore and see a different culture and do your masters?
Yeah, it was actually a bit of both. So academically, I was preparing for IIT all my school days, and somehow I fell very seriously ill, in the key times of preparation, and so I couldn't crack IIT.
Okay.
I went to a government college still, but it was still not an IIT, and that kind of always made me feel like I should do one more degree in a prestigious place.
So do you feel like you're not good enough to continue your business in a way?
Not really about the business, but just I knew
Personal,
I was a very good
internal,
student,
yeah.
right from school. So I felt like the natural next thing for me to do is to go to an IIT. And
Yeah.
because that didn't happen, I wanted to do a very good master's, right?
Okay.
I wrote the GRE, again got an excellent score, which was above my expectations, got a scholarship. So it was like, everything is like, somebody is telling you just spend 2 years and study for free. Why wouldn't you do it? And it's
Yeah.
a good school, so why not?
That's making me think, right? Because I never went to college. I basically after the 12th grade, I decided to not go at all. I didn't even apply to any college, which makes me think, what if I got a full scholarship? Would I still have not gone? That's what I was thinking. But yeah, that's great.
I think different people get motivation from different settings. I don't know if maybe academics or school or college motivated you or not.
It never really did.
But for me, actually, academic institutions are quite inspiring. Like even now, because I actually did a third degree as well, right? After that, I went and did an MBA also. So like even now, if I had an opportunity to study, I would study. So that way, I think it's just what motivates you or what drives
Is it
you.
a curiosity in a way? Like you
Probably.
just want to learn more and more in a way.
Probably.
Okay. Now, another thing that is very interesting to me is that you were ideating with Movin, your co-founder, and you had a lot of these weekend chats. So you first decided in a way to launch the company, and then you started thinking of what are we actually going to exactly do. So then what was the process like instead of first starting with an idea? Because I feel like a lot of businesses start with an idea in mind. But in this case, I feel like your idea was developed over a lot of these weekend chats with your co-founder, right? How did you, I mean, I guess I can see why you came to it, but why did you take that path instead of directly starting with that idea in the first place?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think different people start businesses for different reasons. For us, specifically for me, it was about being an entrepreneur first than solving a specific problem, right? And for me, being an entrepreneur is a state of being. And I wanted to be building something on my own from scratch. And when Movin and I decided to start together, what we aligned on first and what we found exhilarating in the partnership was how we were, very overlapping on our value systems. We wanted to build a company that would be tech first. We wanted to build a company that would be B2B and not necessarily B2C.
Why?
Because we felt like we wanted to build something where unit economics are strong from day one, right?
Okay.
We did not feel like we were the kind of founders who could build a brand from 0 to 1 or a use case from 0 to 1, spend like millions and millions of dollars building that need in the market and then, make use of it, like how Swiggy or Zomato has done or Ola has done and so on. We did not see ourselves as that kind of an entrepreneur.
Maybe because also of the background being B2B.
Probably it was also maybe a life stage. Like we were both in our late 30s at that time. Like he was early 30s, I was late 30s. But we had already worked for a decade or so, and we have seen the highs and lows of how venture funding can just really make you feel like you're doing something great one day, but also put you down in the dumps the other day. So we just felt like somehow if the axis of control is with us rather than with an investor, then we can actually think and work more calmly. And therefore, we wanted a strong unit economics as a fundamental thing even in the beginning.
Okay.
So all of these things were actually much more important to us, that what kind of business we would build and why we would build that and so on. How we would treat people, how we would, what kind of culture we wanted to build. All of those things were actually important for us. So when all of this was clear and we felt, and we've been friends before, so we knew each other personally quite well. So when all of this was going well, we felt like, okay, this is great. We want to do something together and we would have great fun doing it together. Now let's actually think about what are all the things that we could work on, right? What interesting problems are out there.
You met him in Ola, right?
That's
While
right.
working in Ola.
That's right.
So then how did you know you wanted to do something with this person? Like what gave you that yeah, this is the person I want to sort of co-found something with?
Of course, when we were working together in Ola, this was not the primary thing we were thinking about. It was like, here is a great, colleague who's also, no nonsense, very strong work ethic, doesn't, slack around, is always fact based and very objective. So these were the things that drew me to him first, and of course, very competent in whatever he does. We also had a lot of shared interests. We liked, hard rock and heavy metal music. We, spent a lot of our, time outside of work together discussing things that we, like in common. So I just felt like we had an easy chemistry and a mutual respect of each other's skills.
And did you have a different skill set? Because I feel like when I'm thinking of co-founding a company, right, I would normally think like, do they have complementary skill sets or do they have the same skill sets, right? And how do you think about that?
Yeah, in terms of experiences and skills, we are very complementary. In terms of, way of working and work ethics or values, we are very similar.
Okay.
So I am more big picture, more business first, very P&L focused, also much more outgoing and can meet strangers at senior levels and do partnership conversations and so on. Movin's strengths come from his deep product knowledge. In fact, in Bangalore, I think he's one of those product leaders who's who got quite a following. He's built product communities of his own. He's a techie by education as well as by practice. So thinks very deeply. I think the fact that he's also founded a company before and spent 2-3 years trying to build it up from scratch also gave him that perspective of what can go wrong in a startup. And so unlike an engineer who would be like in a great academic institution, then large company, etc., but then wouldn't be aware of how to be scrappy or how to be 0 to 1. He had a bit of both. So he was like strong pedigree, great experiences with large brands, but also has tried his hand out at something. So I think that's what brings that balance to our partnership.
Makes sense. And you got your job in Ola when you moved to Bangalore through like a network. Maybe you knew someone. How is that? And how would do you think that was from a position of advantage?
Yeah. So one thing I realized when I kind of wanted to leave my family business and start something on my own was to first work for a few years in the tech space, because I
Yeah.
was clear that I wanted to build a technology company, but I was not very sure what kind of company I would build or who I would build it with, etc. And having seen my dad and his co-founder, have a very successful partnership over the last 40, 50 years, I knew that starting a business alone can be very, very stressful and very lonely. And having a good co-founder would be like great, because then you can share strengths and weaknesses. You can share, successes and downs. So I just felt like then it won't be like, your business's success is your success. It'll always be like you are a separate entity, but your business is also a separate entity.
Yeah.
Which is very important to maintain
To
sanity, right?
like distinguish between them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So therefore, wanting a co-founder was clear. Understanding tech and how to build a tech business, I knew that I didn't have that skill back then. So I wanted to work for a few years. And I looked around, and everybody who was in Bombay a few years back when I was in McKinsey in Bombay were in Bangalore now,
Yeah.
right? Moving from consulting to startups and into good leadership positions. So one of those mentors of mine who I used to work with in McKinsey is the guy who helped me get my first job here.
Nice. You also mentioned, you spoke a bit about how venture capital could perhaps be a bit controlling, right? So why would you, because you already have a family business, I'm assuming, and you've done some stuff yourself by that time, why still raise venture capital? Was it to get a bit of branding? Was it to get a bit of credibility? Like, hey, like you're doing it the legit way? And do you think it was a good business decision instead of self-funding?
First off, I think the extent to which our business required capital, at least in the early days, that's not something I could have self-funded myself with anyway, right?
Okay.
So we wanted,
For the license? I mean, sorry, for the
license and
entity.
everything, right? We knew that, setting up a financial services business means that, you'll have many months of no revenue, need to build a good, strong team, which will require salaries from day one.
Yeah.
Also money for licensing and so on. And cash flow is a little back-ended. It takes 2-3 years for the money business to start, returning any cash. So, so we are looking at a few millions down there. If it was a slightly different kind of business, let's say an analytics business or a SaaS business where, the idea and the initial MVP can be built with not much capital, and then, it's all about trying to then scale it. I might have really, honestly chosen a bootstrapped way of doing it also. Because I do believe that, and I've written LinkedIn articles about this, I genuinely believe that not all businesses should look for venture capital or need venture capital. And it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes it's, of course, it is beneficial when you need it, when your business needs it. But it can also be a little, challenging to manage the VC growth curve that really
That is expected.
Yeah,
But
that's
in a way,
expected.
doesn't that pressure also sort of, I feel like it also builds a lot of founders, right? That pressure in a way that you need to 10x, you need to 10x.
Absolutely. I think if your business is that kind of a business, like in our business, I genuinely think it is a business where you can keep 10xing every couple of years.
Yeah.
Because, the market is literally limitless. If you're done with India, which itself probably will take many, many years, then you can go other countries. It's not a
The
physical
first plan
business.
is to dominate India, right? I'm guessing.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So therefore, I think that it's a limitless TAM, and therefore, how much you scale is actually going to be dependent on what kind of infrastructure you can build and scale. So therefore, for us, VC makes sense. It always made sense from the beginning. Secondly, I think you are right. Getting funded from a tier one VC also means that people have looked at your idea, and somebody who's actually had a great track record of backing successful companies also feels that your company and your idea is worth backing. So that is actually for a company on day one, which doesn't have product, doesn't have customers, you need all the brand endorsement you can get. Let's say it's a great fund partnering with you, it's a excellent CTO joining you, or it could be about some large bank or very reputed bank partnering with you. Any of these things start giving you that credibility, licensing.
And were there any moments that made you feel like, yes, it is because of this branding or this push that you were able to make a great hire or able to get on some publication? Is there any specific thing you're thinking of?
Yeah. I
in saying this?
I feel that all the time. So in fact, I think had we not raised so much capital, we wouldn't have been able to get the first 5 6 employees that we got, and then those guys then literally become the magnets for attracting the next set of talent. Similarly, without capital, would have been very difficult to go to a bank and say, "Hey, we are a day zero company. Can you partner with us and help us receive international payments?" I think it has helped us everywhere. It continues to help us.
And how do you think of hiring, especially those first few team members that are so important?
One good thing that we had going, apart from the fact that we had a strong VC backing us, was both of us were experienced and had like good networks, strong networks. I had the ISB network, Movin has the IMA network and the IIT Delhi network. And then been in Bangalore in leadership roles for a few years now. So we had our own good personal networks, plus a lot of goodwill from helping friends out in the last few years for their stuff, right? So
Alumni networks.
yeah,
really
exactly.
key.
So that was then paying back to us, and I think like I said, the first one or two gets the next, and being uncompromising on what you want first up, and just really making excellent first 2 or 3 hires in terms of just value system fit, pedigree, culture fit, etc.
What's your most important value?
As a company,
if you had no, not as a company, let's say you're looking to hire someone, right? What's the main thing that you look for?
I think I look for the one thing that I truly look for is a mindset to do what it takes to get to the next level. Not really skills, not really pedigree. All of those things are second. But I think the willingness to do what it takes and not complain or not be entitled, or say that hey, I'm a product manager, I can't do customer support, or I am X, I can't do Y. That is what I look for. Like I'm all in, and I'm going to do what it takes. I'm not going to wait for somebody to come and inspire me. I'm inspired myself because this is what I want to do. So that's the mindset I look for.
And do you think that person needs a college degree today?
Not really. College degree is just a good proxy to kind of quickly filter from millions of people. But if I had a referral of someone without a college degree, or with a college degree, or with a college degree from a school that I have probably not heard of, etc., but the person referring that person
That
to me
matters a lot. Yeah.
is someone I know and trust, then I would be more than willing. I think the only problem is, because there are so many people in the world and because you have very little time to hire, we just use some filters or markers to look for talent. That filter can either be a degree on the resume, or it can be some friend who recommends.
Yeah.
In fact, many of our early hires we have made actually through referrals.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That's the best way, in my opinion. Now, are there any unconventional or unorthodox methods with which you've ever hired, or have had any stories of people who've joined you and you wouldn't have expected it? Think about, let's say, a cold email that really stood by and you had an interview.
Yeah. A cold tweet is what helped us hire our head of partnerships. So this guy was, genuinely interested in payments, and he just wrote a tweet to my co-founder. I mean, he just, messaged my co-founder on Twitter, reacting to a tweet of his. And I think that kind of sparked a conversation. And we were not even looking for a partnership leader at that time. And in fact, we did not even know that we wanted a partnership leader.
Yeah.
But that tweet was interesting. So it got us to just chat with him. And after 2-3 different conversations, we kind of started developing that feeling that this guy could be great for us, and he wants to come for all the right reasons, because he just loves being in the space and being an expert in the space. So yeah, it was quite unusual for us to be able to hire such a person. He's like a decade in Citibank.
Yeah.
Very strong profile.
And a cold tweet.
And a cold tweet is what helped us
I love
hire.
stories like that, personally. Now, you also, when starting Skydo, you started very bare bones, right? You did all the back end and only a little bit of the front end. So what was your approach to building that MVP and shipping as fast as possible to even getting, so I believe the backend was on like spreadsheets, right? In the early days.
Yeah, the front end was spreadsheets and some of the back end was spreadsheets. The only real thing that we had built was the interface, the networking between the different payment providers, the foreign bank in other geographies to the Indian bank and then to our backend. That's the only thing we had built out.
Why it goes so bare bones?
It was because this was actually largely driven by Movin's past experience, where in his previous startup, he had, he was young and for him, it was like, I'm going to build the most feature rich, exciting photo sharing app that there is ever out there. And they just kept building features one on top
And
of
you
each
only
other.
need one or two features.
Not only that, you also need to know what the customer wants, right?
Yeah.
What is the problem you're fundamentally trying to solve? And then, build to that. So I think because that experiment was not so great for him, he was also like really overcorrecting for it and saying that, hey, I wouldn't build anything that a customer doesn't want, right? And I wouldn't really, just geek out on features. Instead, I would just want to listen to the customer. So that was like, and the first 2 years, I think we were very, very, very serious about that principle. Now, with a little more understanding of the nuanced level of detail in the business and more instinctive understanding of what customer wants, etc., we are able to take a few more calls saying, let's build these features. But back then, we wanted to be bare bones, just build the bare minimum, then let customers tell us what they wanted.
And how did you get your first 5 customers?
Twitter.
Like you just tweeted like, hey, we have a new
Yes.
payment processing way for your international payments. Join now. Like, what was that?
Not even that. We just said, hey, we are building a payment solution to help Indian businesses receive payments. We would love to talk to you if you are an exporter to understand your problems. So that was the tweet.
How easy was it to get them? Assuming, let's say you got that tweet, you got that call. What was the conversion rate? Like, were all of them convinced by looking at your product?
Not all of them. Some of them had very specific needs which we could not satisfy. But many of them found it interesting that, a couple of people who looked like and who talked like tech founders and not like bankers were actually trying to build something.
Fintech.
And they were also talking things which sounded music to the ears of those guys who responded, which is, you're going to make your life seamless and simple. So I think in their mind, they were imagining, products that they were using daily, like a Canva or a Slack or something like that, and saying, okay, if my payments also can be such a good, rich product experience, then why not?
Yeah.
I think that was what attracted the first few guys to us. Obviously, our resumes and our pedigree helped them trust us and feel that we could be doing something meaningful. And again, the fact that we were backed by a VC, etc., started building that credibility.
And do you think you've hit that product market fit?
Absolutely, I would say very strongly that at least.
When did you know?
So PMF is a funny thing. It's not one
is.
PMF, but it's like several PMFs, right? I mean, just to explain what I mean, a PMF can be for a particular sub-segment of the market that you're starting with. A PMF can be for a broader market. A PMF can also be for both the product as well as for the GTM. You also need a PMF for your GTM. That is, my acquisition engine is actually got its PMF, right?
Yeah.
And then can I translate the PMF of one subsegment of the market to another subsegment is also a measure of PMF, and so on. But yeah, so I would not say it is one particular point in time that we found PMF, but I would say it's a set of PMFs that we are constantly finding. And right now, I would be confident enough to say that we have sufficient PMF to be very confident that we can build a $20-30 million business, right? Now, can I build a $200 million business? Yes, the market size is there. But do I have all the PMF required to get to 200 million? I am discovering them. So that's the way to think about it.
But you processed 300 million in payments last month.
No, we process $300 million of payments annually as of now.
Okay, annually as of
my annual run rate of payments processed is a little more than 300 million. Yeah.
Got it. And you wanted to get to 750 this year. In some article, I believe that Movin had said 750 million by 2025.
That's correct.
How is that going to happen? What is the client acquisition strategy? Are we on track, and what
Yeah.
are the plans?
Yeah, I think we are very much on track. In fact, if everything that we are working on, pans out the way we want to, we may hit that number a couple of months sooner than the end of the year. But looks like this will happen. The Like I said, we have the PMF now for this customer and this GTM. So we know that small businesses who operate in services or manufacturing or sell on commerce platforms like Amazon and are working from India to the world. We have now understood who they are, what they really care for, and what they are willing to pay for. What features of our product appeal to them, and how do we actually find them online? How do we talk to them when we have to convert them on the phone? And then once they come on board, then what do we need to do to make sure that they keep transacting with us? I think that secret sauce we have kind of identified. Now it's about executing continuously, making sure that we keep learning along the way and fine tuning what we have learned along the way. And I think that engine is working quite well.
That's great. What was the process to get the PACB entity approval? Because I think there are only 5 other players. Maybe is it 5 including Skydo or excluding?
I think it's 5 including Skydo.
Including Skydo.
Yeah.
Because so it hasn't been done like a lot. What was the process like to go and get that?
So PACB is RBI's way of regulating and making cross-border payments systematic. So it's a regulation that covers all aspects from technical to compliance to data protection and so on. So we had to follow all of that. Even before PACB came in, we were following most of that because luckily our India bank partner or our international bank partner, all of these folks who allow us to move money had been mandating most of these things. So our business was by default very ready for this regulation. Then once the regulation came in, we also worked quite hard. We kind of over invested in compliance. We have very senior compliance folks who probably most companies might hire slightly down the journey. But we felt like in fintech, in payments, compliance is going to be a differentiator. So let's actually over invest from the beginning. So this meant that we were ready for complying with these regulations from day one, right? And that kind of helped us speed along the process. There are 2-3 things that this regulation requires. One is obviously you need to have a certain amount of capital.
A good bank balance.
Yes, a strong bank balance. Again, the funding helps there. Secondly, you need to have a strong compliance framework and proof of adherence to that framework. Again, we were good at that. And thirdly, I think some speed. So we were one of the first to apply, which is why we are one of the first to get it. I think there will be a few more who will get it over the next few months. But given that this is a very niche space, it's not like domestic PA where if you have a PA license, then you can start a UPI app or something like that. And maybe many folks who are not directly payment companies like a PhonePe or a Google Pay, but probably are doing commerce or something else, also have a UPI app, right? Let's say like Amazon has a UPI app. Their market share may not be great, but it's very useful for them because it belongs to part of their overall strategy.
You need that PPI license, right?
Exactly.
For that.
Similarly, Cred has a UPI stuff because
this whole different thing.
Exactly. So different people have domestic payments because it maybe that's not their primary driver of business, but it helps in their business. Whereas in cross-border payments, I feel like the set of people applying and the set of people who will be qualified will be smaller because it's a much more nuanced and also deeply involved business because you not only have to do your stuff in India, but you also have to have partnerships in multiple countries.
On this, what were your initial conversations like? Because at that time, how would you have that backing to then go and talk to these partners in these different countries? What were those conversations like for you to convince them to have these partnerships?
It was not easy. And first of all, reaching out to such people itself was not easy.
Exactly.
In fact, it's quite funny. I think that's probably what entrepreneurship is about, right? Once you know what you want, then you keep asking for that question all over the world and somebody in the world answers you, right? So one of our early advisors and friends actually told us about, which particular set of international people you have to go and talk to from his past experience. So then all you need is somebody to tell you a name that, go talk to this company, right? Then once you know that, then like a person possessed, you actually go and search for anybody who could get you to
that person.
Talk to that person, right? And then soon you will find somebody.
Find some connection or the other.
Exactly.
But how do you convince that person then?
That was hard.
To buy in?
There were 2-3 meetings where, it didn't go anywhere, saying that, okay,
Like, who are you? Was it more of a question like, who are you? What's your credibility? Or
Exactly. It was like, are you guys even serious, or is it like a college project, or what is it, right? But I think persistence paid off there. And then, also finding multiple people. Like, let's say you are a sales, executive in a company trying to sell enterprise software. Obviously, you know that, let's say, GE in the US is a client who would be a very large client for you.
yeah,
After trying the first contact, it's not like you will give up. Then you will find somebody else to go talk to, and somehow figure out, a node that will break.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what ended up happening for us also.
yeah. I would have similar stories when trying to reach out to these venture funds to convince them to do podcasting. It
Exactly.
takes a lot of persistence. How long did that take you? That persistence, those phases to build those partnerships. How many months?
Yeah, it
years?
took us the first, I would say, February of 2022 is when we both got free from our previous jobs and like started working full time on Skydo. It took us about end of September to actually kind of get the basic flow stitched, right? So
Right.
it took us about 7-8 months overall.
Do you think that is sort of your moat?
Not that, but 5 other cycles of the same thing that we have done after that, right? So now we didn't stop with that initial partnerships. Now we have multiple
Right.
bank partnerships in multiple parts of the world, and in every country now that is a major
Existing relationships work as leverage to get more.
exactly. So in every country now we not only have a primary relationship, we also have a backup, right?
Yeah.
And then we are adding more countries every few months. So we are kind of very paranoid that we should have the. In fact, the problem statement that I keep repeating to the team is that we should have the deepest and most wide set of rails to move money, also at the lowest cost, right? If we have this, then that becomes a superpower. Because then on top of that, you can keep building products and offering it to customers at prices that make sense to us economically, but still is very, very attractive to the customer.
And this might sound like a really dumb question, but what do the partner banks, right, in foreign countries, what do they get?
Yeah, it's a good question actually, because we have to actually understand that in order to be able to strike a partnership.
Yeah.
Sometimes it may be that, sometimes it may be as simple as, in fact, we have actually said this to companies that, hey, we may not be able to pay you much, we are still small, but if you come into India through us, it's a chance for you to understand India, right? And then, you can really go after the big whales there. Even this has worked, right? So it's all about finding something that's making sense for them, and
Right.
then, figuring out what's that overlap of what you want and what they want.
I think you know my next question. How are these? How what happened there? Is there any story of a partner bank coming into India with, or maybe making a relationship with a whale per se?
Yeah, it is happening live as we speak, and one of those partners is actually coming next week to Bangalore. They've had quite a successful entry into India with us as the first port of entry.
Do we want to reveal any specifics or not yet?
No, it's better not to.
Okay.
In fact, they've now got so many large clients in India that all of us, from us to those other large clients and these guys, we are all going to watch an IPL game together next week.
So it's a relationship play, really.
Yes.
That makes sense. That's awesome. Now, into a bit of the technical, right? I mean, we're already a bit technical, but I would say what happens, what does the infrastructure look like when a Skydo customer receives a payment in a local US bank account? How exactly does it get to India?
Yeah. You can think of it like how an Amazon parcel comes home, right? When you let's say you order cutlery, right? So some supplier from somewhere is then putting that cutlery into an Amazon warehouse. Then the moment you make an order, the first mile is basically the supplier to Amazon's warehouse. The middle mile is Amazon's warehouse to probably Amazon's fulfillment center just outskirts of Bangalore. That's the big bulk transport. And then the last mile is basically from Amazon's fulfillment center in Bangalore to your apartment.
Right.
So it's exactly how we move the money. So the first mile is basically your customer making a local payment in the foreign geography into a Skydo virtual account or Skydo provided virtual account, which is on your name. So that's a free, easy, simple process for the sender. He just goes online to his internet banking, makes a payment to a particular account number which is in his country. It's mostly free of charge. Even if it is chargeable, it's like very, very minimal.
Okay.
That's the first mile. Then Skydo is connected to that account. So as soon as that account is funded, we get an API ping, and we know that now, okay, there is a payment that is received from XYZ imports to ABC exports, and this is the underlying invoice, this is the value. So we know all of that information. On that same day, hundreds of such payments come into different virtual accounts. We aggregate all of that and then bring it as a single payment into India, into Skydo's partner bank account here in India. This is like the middle mile transit. And then after that, the last mile is basically the India partner bank, Skydo's India partner bank converts the foreign currency into Indian currency based on our pre-agreed rates, and then ships it off into the XYZ company's bank account in India. All of this is basically touch-free for the exporter. He or she doesn't have to do anything. And all of this is orchestrated by Skydo because we are the ones moving the money in each place. Right. So we can give you end-to-end payment tracking. We can also be very transparent on the rates because we are aggregating these payments. So it's it's cheap for us, and we are able to translate that low cost into a lower price for customers.
Makes sense. I think a big part of why foreign fintech don't come into India is because of the landscape of regulations, right? You've always thought of regulations as an enabler, not a blocker. Are there any regulations you've come to love or hate?
Hate is a strong word. I would say I have come to find certain challenges and certain opportunities. Right. Let me put it that way. So the fact that, in fact, the same regulation itself can be an opportunity and a challenge both, right? So the fact that we have to do KYC of every company, video KYC, and I'm just going to take it as an example, right? Means that it requires an infrastructure to build. There are many of our competitors who are actually going to court challenging that they don't have to do video KYC for every customer and so on. But we took the opposite approach. We just said, let's figure out how to make use of this
as easy as possible.
Yeah, we make it as easy as possible. The sign up, you signed up with Skydo.
It took me like the call, right? It connected me to the call live. It took me around, the call itself was less than a minute. I swear. The guy just asked me questions. 1, 2, for PAN card, photo. It was really short.
Yeah, exactly. So the video KYC is quite short. The sign up process itself, you must have done digitally without talking to anybody, right? Yeah. It was just a series of things that you had to provide.
But to be honest, what happened was I signed up and then I sort of didn't do anything and I also want to ask, what is the onboarding churn in a way, like who actually don't end up drop-offs, correct? So I signed up, but then, the KYC, I'm like, where's my PAN card? Later, right? And then I got a call, like a few days after. And then they were like, hey, they asked me a few questions and she said she's from Skydo. So I'm like, oh, great. Yeah, I had signed up. And then she asked me a few questions, like what are my ticket sizes, etc. And then just assigned a relationship manager, I would say. And then he kept following up with me until I was done with the KYC. So exactly. What is the drop off and how I think you have a good system to combat that, right?
No? Yeah. So I'll answer this before that. Let me just finish the previous point on why regulation is a challenge as well as an opportunity. Yes. So this is a challenge that you now have to build the infrastructure for KYC and so on. But if you think of it as an opportunity, that now you can actually talk to the customer, you can figure out. See, in this process, for example, our team was able to understand that you are actually an exporter and you do have export revenues. So then our CRM also becomes richer, that we know now that this person has foreign payments. So then any communication that comes to you from now onwards, whether it's on email or WhatsApp, or let's say 2-3 months down the line, you stop receiving payments immediately, our relationship team might actually just check in with you saying that, hey, we have not seen you receive any payments. Okay? Are you okay? Is your business still on? So all of this is basically because we had a chance to interact with you, right? So I think similarly, getting the PACB license can be a pain because you have to go through all of these technical requirements and capital requirements, but it's also then a moat because then it's not like your competition is going to be endless. Let's say I'm manufacturing glassware, right? Anybody can manufacture glassware. So my competition is going to be very, very large. The smallest to the largest companies. But the regulated businesses have a problem that, it takes a lot of effort to get in, but it's also an advantage because then, you have a limited playing field. So you can actually relax because it's not like suddenly a new competitor is going to come in tomorrow. You know that anybody who comes in also has to go through the same process. Right? But now coming back to your question on onboarding, we try to make the process as simple as possible. So in fact,
70% of the onboardings that we have are people who did not speak to a salesperson. They actually went through the process and then signed up on their own because it's straightforward. In fact, if you had your PAN with you, you might have probably like been able to do it. But you did not have it. So the moment you don't have it and that moment is lost, then you get busy with your life, doing other things.
100%.
So,
Exactly.
right? So that is why we have a sales team. So we look at the drop-offs at every stage. So everybody who was dropped off at maybe the first stage where you have to give your company details, or second stage where you have to give your individual details, or some people might not have their Aadhaar and their phone number matched. So then, you want to get the OTP on their phone number because it might belong to a previous phone number or something like that. So all of these challenges are there because of which people drop off, which we recognize, and therefore a sales team calls to convert these drop-offs. But yeah, 70% people do direct onboarding. The remaining 30% would come from maybe a pool of double that size who dropped off, and then we call them. Half of them would convert and then sign up. And once people sign up, then almost everybody completes the video KYC because it's a very simple process as you mentioned. And then your accounts are active extremely late. So when you start receiving.
How long before follow-ups before the first payment has been received and after the video KYC has been complete?
I think we probably give it a week. Sometimes a welcome email goes out immediately. I'm sure you must have got 1 or 2 emails. If it goes to
I probably did check. I think a lot of people don't check that.
Exactly. So you anyway get a couple of emails in the first week, which introduce you to the platform and so on. Some folks who have not spoken to a salesperson during the process also have some doubts. So they might actually be wondering how to now start using the apps. So typically we give it a few days, like a week. At most of them we give a call saying, hey, welcome to Skydo. I see you've signed up. Are you expecting any payments? Do you need any help? Typically people say, no, I've shared my account number with my client. I should get a payment in the next few days or a week or not. That's updated of the CRM, and then we don't bother the customer till that time frame is done.
Yeah.
But some folks then at that point say, hey, I signed up, but I know, can you give me a demo? Right? I just want to understand. Or can you tell me what I should ask my client to do differently now? And so on.
With also support.
Yeah, so there is support. There is also like some self-help tutorials and so on, but there is also support. So that's how we then help customers to understand now that you have the account, what to do next.
You feel like the team is packed?
Yeah, team is quite busy.
It's not that big, right? It's like, how many people need? 100?
75.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a quite small team considering the volumes that we do, and we definitely see that the field is packed. It's everybody knows that they are working quite hard, but they also know that it's a matter of maybe a few quarters, and then once you get to a salary,
That's not why you need these hiring interviews to do.
exactly.
Right. Also, one more question for that is, let me know if too invasive, but how does Skydo make its money? Is it basically of that delta between like the sort of a bit of the fees or the flat rate, right? I'm guessing the flat rate. And is that the entire margin?
Yeah, that's the entire margin. So we don't make any money on FX.
Yeah.
It's the one thing that we are very, very conscious now. We show you the mid-market rate. In fact, when you get your first payment through Skydo, which you said you will get next month, you will see that your statement that comes along with the payment will tell you what are the date and time at which the money was converted. And if you go to Google or Reuters or XC or any reliable source, it will be the exact same rate at that minute, right? So therefore, we don't make money on FX. What we do is we charge you a fee, which we tell you upfront.
Is that sustainable? Long run.
I think it is, because we are also going to have a lot of advantages on the cost side, right? As we grow larger, and let's say we also start doing import payments. So when we move money both ways, then our cost of converting money will go down even further. As we become larger and larger, our bank partners maybe will give us even better rates to convert.
And at that point, will you still make none of the FX?
Yeah, we will not make. I think I feel like customers are willing to pay, provided you tell them what it is for.
Yeah, and like clearly, and still be competitive.
Exactly. See, no customer is going to pay more for a better product. I think
Maybe a better experience.
probably not. What I'm trying to say is, if I tell you that, hey, today your breakfast experience is X, I'm going to make it, 2X by giving you, organic cereal and XYZ. You'll say that's fantastic, and you might be willing to pay a slight premium on it. But because the product is 2X better, you will not be willing to pay 2X.
Yeah.
You'll be probably willing to pay like 1.2X no.
Right.
Right? So what we in fact want to do is we want to give a 2x better product at less than 1x the price, right? Which makes it a no-brainer to trust a new brand. Saying that, okay, these guys are going to be better on product.
Or it makes it a bit fishy, right? In a way, like too good to be true in a way. Like how would they make their money? It's just flat. You know?
Yeah. No, it is true. And I think you can be fishy on multiple ways. We chose to be, transparent. And if that makes you feel a little spooked, saying that, are you really making any money?
Then so be it. So be it.
So be it. Because ultimately, if you keep building the brand the right way over the long period of time, then I think it will. And there is enough number of good reviews we have. Like if you look at the Google reviews we have, the ratio of strong reviews to not so strong reviews would be like 40:1 or 30:1. Right? So really overwhelmingly positive.
What are the bad experiences?
Bad experiences are typically for people who we are not able to support. Right. By the way, they could also be bad actors trying to disguise individual payments as business payments. Bring fake invoices. Also, India is, by the way, the capital or maybe one of the capitals of online fraud. So a lot of small businesses in India are actually businesses which are fishing for information and and etc. So when we offboard a few customers because our algorithms actually detect some patterns which are not legit, then those customers, we are not supposed to tell that customer that hey, you may be a fraud, because that is called tipping off.
Yes.
And that's not allowed in regulatory terms. So we have to politely refuse and say, hey, sorry, we can't support.
Those might be the bad actors.
Those most likely, those are the bad guys. There are one or two experiences where we were genuinely messed up, right? Either because the timelines were more than what was promised or something like that.
But the payoff, in a way, you have to do what you have to do.
Exactly.
Now, there are two questions there. One is, any stories of fraud ever caught or slipped by? And then the other one is, how are you preventing fraud? And is there any use of AI?
Yeah. So there is good use of AI already, and I think there is potential to do a lot more.
Maybe some business ideas for the people listening.
Absolutely. There are already a couple of young startups, younger than us, that we are working with, who are doing some very exciting things on AI for compliances, or AI for pattern recognition and fraud and so on, which we incorporate into our flow. But essentially, the way to look at fraud is, fraud can happen in international transactions in 2-3 different ways. One is you actually are charging for a product or service you did not even negate. Second is you are actually breaking a payment which is not a business payment through a business payment with a fraudulent invoice or a fake documentation. And third is, it is not a fraud; it's a legit payment, but it's actually money out there. So all of these.
Got any?
Yeah, we caught several. In fact, I would say around 2% of overall payments, 1.5 to 2% of overall payments, end up being one of these three.
Yes.
And I don't know how many we would have let slip, because that we will not know.
Yeah.
We have caught quite a few. We have stopped it. In fact, every node in this chain also looks for it. So our sending side banking partners would have their own algos. We would have our own algos. And the receiving bank also has their own systems to check. The way we check is, we check for patterns. That's the underlying engine, right? First of all, it looks for certain simple things like name screening, entity screening, whether that is belonging to any kind of globally designated watch lists, right? And those lists keep updating constantly on a daily basis. It costs us a bunch of money to subscribe to them, but it's important.
Yeah.
That's it, straightforward. The second is, if you said you are a podcaster, let's say, right, and you receive money for a particular business use case. Tomorrow, if I see an invoice from you for selling jewelry, and that will immediately get flagged, and we'll actually ask you more questions. So somebody would call you and say, hey, we received this payment. Can I know what's the nature of the business? Can I see a work contract? We will actually ask for more information, right? And some of those negative reviews that I talked about earlier will be for these kinds of things, right? Where people feel like, we are intruding into their business. But honestly, this is our job. We just cannot help but ask these questions, because unless we are convinced that the money is for legitimate purposes and has a legitimate backing, then we won't be able to move that money, right? So this is the approach. Then we also see that, if somebody is constantly getting, let's say, $5,000 every month, like you mentioned earlier, and then suddenly there is a $50,000 payment, then there will be a flag.
So has anyone ever used Skydo for any acquisition or when selling a business?
we can't support that use case because that becomes a capital infusion. This PACB regulation is for the current account use case or revenue use cases. So it's trade. Trade to be services or goods, but this is all trade payments. If you want to invest in a company from India abroad or from overseas into India, you'll have to bring it through another channel, the banking channel, and then.
So do you think that's a space that's open?
It is open. Some startups are also trying to do it. We also have long-term aspirations to support it.
Yeah.
But I think there is enough here to first build depth and then parallelly go into other space.
We've spoken a lot about that as well. We're deeper and not wider. Now, another very recent thing is that Revolut is set to launch in India by the end of this year. They have the 82 license and the PPI license. How do you see both competing, or do they even compete?
Yeah, so Revolut has been working on their India launch for some time now. They've been here for 3-4 years. They have their CEO is one of someone I know, and they're part of the same industry, so we know each other. We met at multiple events. So I think I'm very excited by their launch because it kind of then elevates the entire industry, right? Because if a global big name is actually launching India space, then it kind of makes it more legit. Like if more, for example, lots of freelancers can now say, hey, I want to have a Revolut account, right? It helps me to make payouts or, receive money, or it helps me to store money in a form of wine or whatever it is. Then Revolut's brand is actually promoting the industry, right? And then tomorrow when my sales team actually talks about, let's say, Skydo's wallet or Skydo's proposition, then it's not a strange thing anymore. It's only a question of how are you better than some other brand, right? So then the sales process becomes a lot easier for me if there's already a great credible competitor.
That's a really good way to look at it, in my opinion. The difference, from a surface level, is Revolut is also like B2C, right? And they're also going for that PPI angle, which is have the UPI integration, have wallets, etc. So how is Skydo going to beat them in the Forex and international trade? So
I think initially we'll be very non-overlapping in our business use cases, but over time, as we also become large, we may start overlapping in a certain areas, because a freelancer could also have an individual consumer offer and receive bills, provided Revolut is also able to distinguish them and then give them the business related or compliance documentation also. Then that becomes the legit use case. So in that case, we start overlapping again. Initially, I think our sets will be quite non-overlap, but over time it could overlap. But I think the way we will do it is we will really focus on what we know best, which is account-to-account transfer, the low-cost, highly transparent accounts receivable software, which gives you from creating invoice to
more B2B, lean into the B2B.
More and more lean into the B2B, and then build depth here.
Does it make you excited?
Absolutely.
Nice. Now, going back to a little bit of another tangent here, is would you have done this without college? I feel like a lot of my audience is on the fence, and I also have a lot of, I feel like, dropouts or people who never want to call it, that are now in the creative fields, exploring services.
I would have definitely found it a little harder to build these kinds of networks. That kind of helped me raise my first round of capital, meet my co-founder, or, etc. I would have found it harder, but not impossible. I'm just saying that each approach, brings with it its own challenges and possibility. So, do I think that I would be able to build the same thing, going to college? Probably not, because that's my nature.
Right.
But if anybody else would be able to do it, of course, I think they can be. Because if they did not go to college and if they are still, keen and, eager enough to follow business podcasts, then I'm sure that they are smart in some other ways. They just have to find their, the angle with which they enter this industry. I cannot say that, the only way to build a company like Skydo is the way we built it.
Right.
There may be other ways to build it.
Last 2 questions.
Like, to bring it to life, let me interrupt you there. To bring that to life, let's say, a college dropout or somebody who's very curious about technology but did not really want to formally go to college, could actually look at something very, very disruptive like stable coins or crypto and say that, hey, why should actually we even depend on banks? Why can't we just move money through, crypto? and can build a crypto-based platform or something like that.
What do you think? Are there any ripe business ideas open for the taking?
I definitely think there's a bunch of ideas around how to use crypto to make payments instant. Because that then completely bypasses. The only thing there you need to be concerned about is, do you know the source and destination so that you can be compliant? But let's say within a closed ecosystem, like for example, gaming payments within a game ecosystem, then you're okay, because then everybody is actually within the ecosystem. The owner of that ecosystem, which is the game development company, but they know the source and the destination, so you won't have any challenges there. So maybe you can still facilitate that. So I think anything to do with making payments instant through technology like crypto or stable cards is interesting.
What do you think of Internet of Things in a way and finance use cases? So assuming paying with things or making payments from your car easier.
Yeah, I think there is a few interesting developments that have happened, right? Which is the simplest ones being like wearables, which can be used for payments and so on. Similarly, your Retina, for example, which can just authenticate you, and when you can go inside of Amazon.
Anything you're excited for in particular?
Definitely. I think wearables is something that I'm really excited about. I am also excited about the human, like your thumbprint or your iris, even wearable glasses.
It's a little spooky in a way because like your back is now attached to your
eyes.
It's very futuristic. Yeah.
It's very futuristic, but it's also probably not, because where those building blocks are available.
Yeah.
You just need someone smart, listening to a podcast like this to then say that, I'm going to spend the next 10 years building this.
Yeah. Maybe someone listening. Right? Exactly. What would you tell your 20-year-old self?
I would say be even bolder.
Even bolder.
Yeah.
More bold bets.
More bold bets.
What's a bold bet you wish you would have taken, if any?
Probably, I would say be even bolder and think even deeper. That's what I would say, both together. Because if you are taking a bold bet without thinking deeply, then you are only going to waste time. But if you think deeply, and because of that deep thinking, you are able to think of some trends soon, or sooner than the average person does, and then you are bold enough to go chase it, then it can be something really big. I wish I had started this company 10 years back, right?
Yeah.
So that's the example.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of this knowledge for everyone.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I quite like the way the conversation went.